There's a reason you've never heard of the Bramble County massacre. It wasn't just the brutality, it was the silence that followed. The files were sealed, the sheriff disappeared, and what they found in the dirt was never meant to be uncovered. In 2002, a small town in Georgia reported one missing person. By the time authorities realized what had happened, 7 people were gone, 1 house. No blood, no witnesses, no suspects, until a box showed up at the precinct inside a VHS tape. And that's when everything unraveled. Bramble County sits on the edge of the Appalachian foothills. Population just under 900. Everyone knows everyone. Which is why the town panicked when 26-year-old schoolteacher Hannah Bell Cross didn't show up to her class or anywhere else. In O'Brakey in O struggle. Her coffee was still warm. The town's deputy Harold Steen filed the report, but as days passed, more people vanished. A retired couple, a 12-year-old boy, a nurse on night shift, all connected by one thing. They lived within 3 miles of Marlow Farm, abandoned for decades. No one had stepped foot on Marlow land since 1983 after the fire, and no one asked what was buried beneath it. 2 weeks into the investigation, a box was left on the front steps of the sheriff's office. No return address. Inside, one unmarked VHS tape note that said, "Play this," and dig. Static plays. The VHS crackles on screen. The footage showed grainy black and white scenes from inside the Marlow house. Candles, shadows, a man wearing a mask made of stitched animal skin. Behind him, something moved. Investigators watched in horror as the tape showed each of the missing people, bound and silent, some still alive, others already gone. The video ended with a final frame, a close-up of a map, a red X behind the barn. They dug and found the first body, then 6 more. Each body was carefully positioned, legs crossed, mouths sewn shut, and a symbol carved into their chest. A spiral surrounded by jagged lines. The FBI was called in. They compared the symbol to known cult markings. Nothing matched, but one retired profiler said it looked and made a kind of personal ritual, not part of any known group. Then came the twist. All 7 victims were left-handed, all were only children, and all had one thing in common from childhood. They had attended the same daycare, Little Pines Nursery. Little Pines burned down in 1983. The same year, the Marlow house caught fire. Same day, same hour. Survivors from the daycare? Only one, a child who was pulled out just before the flames spread. His name? Simon Creed. He later became a drifter. No records. No photos. Until a local manor hunter said he recognized the masked man from the tape. He'd seen him in the woods, living in a makeshift shack, close to the ruins of Marlow Farm. Deputies searched the area. They found the shack, but no Simon. What they did find was a wall of Polaroids, dozens, all of children at Little Pines, each one scratched out, except 7. The pattern was no accident. The fire wasn't coincidence. The victims? All witnesses to something that happened inside Little Pines Nursery. Records were destroyed. Staff died in the fire. But one journal survived buried in evidence storage and forgotten. It belonged to a daycare aide named Denise Hollow. In her final entry, she wrote, "He watches them sleep. He says the left-handed ones can still hear the voices. He says they'll tell. He says if I don't help him, I'll be next." The last page, covered in blood. The case was never officially solved. The town never talks about it. And every 5 years, a woman leaves a white rose on Hannah Bell's doorstep. No one knows who she is, but she always whispers the same thing before she leaves. He's still listening. What really happened inside that nursery? Who is Simon Creed? And what did those children see? Until someone speaks, the case remains sealed. But one thing's for sure. This is the most brutal story you were never supposed to hear. 7 people gone. A burned daycare. A masked man who vanished without a trace, and one name whispered in the dark. Simon Creed. But Bramble County's horrors weren't over, because in 2021, he came back. It had been 19 years since the original murders. Most of the town had moved on. Most. But then she appeared again, the woman with the white rose. This time, she didn't leave it on Hannibel's porch. She left it on the sheriff's grave, and beside it, a note. "He's buried in the wrong place." Bramble's new sheriff, Eli Monroe, was a military man. Logical, tough, but this note, it rattled him. when he tracked the woman down, now an old, frail figure. She gave him only a name, the Watcher, and begged him to go back to where it all began. Little Pines. The site of the daycare was now overgrown forest, but Eli brought a team. They scanned the earth and found what they thought was just old stone, until one of them uncovered a trapdoor below it, a narrow staircase carved into the bedrock, and at the bottom a child's chair, bolted to the ground. All around it were claw marks in the concrete, and in the far wall, 7 names scratched in tiny handwriting, all victims from 202, but one name had been added. Eli. After leaving the nursery site, Sheriff Eli began hearing things, a voice, whispering, calling his name at night. He wore a recorder to bed on the 3rd night. It captured something, distorted. Voice playback. Do you see it now? You're just like me. The voice was analyzed and matched a voice from the 2002 Wasserman Creeds, except that would make Creed nearly 50. But a hunter's trail cam near Marlow Farm caught something else. A figure wearing the same stitched animal mask, but moving. Like a teenager, the sheriff ordered patrols near the farm. 3 nights later, a local girl, Amber Lynn, went missing. She'd been camping with her brother. Said she saw a man in the woods watching them. She left the tent to go after him. Never came back. 2 days later, her backpack was found. Inside, a photo of Little Pine's nursery. Dated 1982, a lock of hair and a torn page from a Bible. Circled in red ink. Suffer the little children to come unto me. Eli found the old woman again. The one who left the rose. Her name? Margaret Creed, Simon's mother. She'd been in hiding for decades, too afraid to speak. She said Simon wasn't born evil. He was made. They did things to him in that nursery. He was different. They said he could hear what others couldn't, see what others wouldn't. He saw something down there, in the dark, and it never let him go. According to Margaret, there were others like Simon. A secret group who believed in the calling of the marked. Only children, left-handed, sensitive to what they called the frequency. She gave Eli an address, a cabin in the woods where, she claimed, the Watcher still lived, but warned him, he's not alone anymore. Eli took a team and went up the mountain. They found the cabin. Inside, dozens of animal masked jars of hair and fingernails, an altar made of children's toys, burned and fused together. But the most horrifying thing, the back room where a young girl alive was strapped to a chair, eyes sewn shut, and a tape recorder playing the same whisper on loop. Close your eyes and listen. That's how we see. She had been missing for 9 months. Her name was Amory Fields. She had no memory of anything except the sound, but as paramedics took her away, she said one thing, he's still here. That night, Eli returned to the station. On his desk was another VHS tape. No label. He slid it in. Footage began rolling. It was live. A camera inside the precinct, filming him. In real time. He turned around. Nothing. Turned back to the screen and saw a man in a mask standing behind him. Is Simon Creed alive? Or has someone taken up his legacy? What really happened beneath Little Pines? And what is the frequency that only some children can hear? This isn't over, because something has awakened in Bramble County, and it's listening. Last time, a missing girl was found alive. A hidden room under a burned daycare was unearthed, and Sheriff Eli Monroe discovered that some tapes record you while you're watching. But the truth, it hadn't even scratched the surface. Sheriff Eli stared at the screen, frozen. The man in the mask, gone when he turned around, but the fear still there. The VHS tape still rolling, now showing a child's room, a Mary's room, from years ago. This wasn't just surveillance. This was memory, somehow. The tape was showing things no camera could record it. A young Amory, standing still in her crib. One a voice from the dark whispered, close your eyes and come see. Then static, and on the screen in red font, it's not over. She's just the first. Amory was transferred to a trauma center in Atlanta. For weeks, she said nothing, until one night, she drew something. A spiral of ears. Dozens of human ears, drawn in charcoal. Then she finally spoke. He says the ears keep the voices. That's how he finds us again. Her therapist's notes were chilling. She described a man who only came in dreams, called himself Father Watcher, said she was chosen because she could hear the old sounds, and she remembered other children, but she couldn't name them because, she said, they weren't born yet. Eli, digging through old FBI casework, found something buried from 1983. A project called Operation Frequency. Classified. Started after the Little Pines fire. Declassified pages mention. Auditory. Hallucination mapping in PIK children. Experimental sound tests using elf tones, left-handed neurological anomalies, and one more thing. Subject 0. SN. Creed 5 years old. Simon Creed was no ordinary kid. He was part of a government-funded experiment, and Little Pines was the test site. They weren't teaching kids. They were recording them, seeing which ones reacted to the tones. Only a few did. They called them Echo Children, and every one of them had either vanished or died. Except Simon. At the edge of Bramble County is an old radio tower, defunct since the 90s. But at 3:33 a.m. every night, it emits a low pulse. No signal. No music. Just sound. One local ham radio operator, Rick Landers, started recording it, overlaid the waveform with a digital spectrogram, and found something buried in the noise, a whisper, repeating one word. Return. Rick played it for Eli. Eli brought in a forensic sound analyst. They ran it through software and matched the frequency pattern to a baby monitor recording from 1982. A recording made inside Little Pines. Margaret Creed said Simon wasn't alone. There were 3 others. Echo children who slipped through the system. Eli tracked them down. Lydia was now a reclusive painter in Tennessee. James Tiller living in a psychiatric ward under a false name. Emmett Rook missing since 2009. He visited Lydia first. She hadn't spoken in years, but her paintings told stories. Every canvas showed the same thing. A man with no face, a spiral where his mouth should be, and lines of children walking into the earth. And in one corner, in red, we heard him first, but now he hears us. Rick set up a signal jammer near the old radio tower, tried to block the 3:33 signal. It worked for one night. Then his house was burned to the ground, inside the ashes. Fire investigators found something untouched. A cassette tape, labeled, "You silenced me. Now I'll speak louder." They played it. It wasn't a voice. It was hundreds. Layered screams, chants, children laughing, and beneath it all, a single phrase repeated. The spiral is not a symbol. It's a path. Eli visited the psychiatric hospital to meet James Tiller. Tiller had gouged out his own ears years ago. Eli asked why. James said, "Because silence isn't safe. It's a door. When it's too quiet, he comes back." You didn't find Simon. You found what he let in. As Eli turned to leave, James called out, "Hey, Sheriff, you ever wonder why your daughter only draws spirals now?" A photo of his 4-year-old daughter's latest drawing. A spiral drawn in red crayon, and in the center, a pair of stitched eyes, narrated low, solemn. It started with a missing girl. It led to a burned nursery. Now it's inside people's heads. Something survived Little Pines. Something that spreads through sound, through memory, through children, and it's just getting started. Sheriff Eli's daughter has started drawing spirals, just like the other children, and one man in a psychiatric ward just told him the truth. Simon Creed isn't the killer. He's the door. Now, that door is opening again. After weeks of searching, Sheriff Eli finally found Heimer, what was left. Emmett Rourke's body was discovered inside an abandoned train car outside Bramble County. He'd been dead for days. No wounds, just a cassette recorder in his lap. Still running. Inside his backpack was a journal, over 300 pages, mostly scribbles, but in the final entry, Emmett wrote, "They thought the frequency was just a sound, but it's a live dot. It learns. It waits in the quiet." He also left behind coordinates deep in the national forest, marked with a spiral. Eli hiked alone to the coordinates. At first, nothing, just trees, but his radio lost signal. His phone battery died, and the air went still. No wind, no birds, just stillness. Then he saw it, a ring of stones, inside old animal bones and children's shoes. In the center was a wooden box, inside an old reel-to-reel tape marked Ritual Echo 1983. He brought it back, played it at the station. What came out was not music, not words, a pattern, a pulsing series of tones that made the lights flicker, and made one deputy start bleeding from his nose. Another began muttering, "He's listening. He's listening. He's here." Meanwhile, Amory, now more alert, began speaking during sleep studies. Doctors recorded her mumbling in unknown languages, but one phrase kept recurring. "The child under the floor." Eli returned to the site of Little Pines with a ground-penetrating radar team. They searched beneath the foundation, and they found it. A sealed compartment. Inside, a child skeleton wearing a staff badge. It reads, Megan Rourke, Emmett's twin sister, reported. Missing in 1983. Never found. But here's the twist. The forensic timeline says she died before the fire. Not during it, after petitioning federal court. Eli accessed sealed government files. Operation Frequency was real. It was designed to test auditory manipulation on developing children. The theory? That certain sound frequencies could induce suggestibility or open neural pathways to collective memory. Children who responded unusually were labeled echo subjects. Simon Creed was subject 0. Emmett and Megan were subjects 3 and 4. And here's the most chilling line in the report. Subject 0 reports contact with a watcher entity during echo state sessions. Insists he hears instructions in the quiet. Recordings show no audio present. The last recorded note. Program terminated due to mass trauma event and facility fire. Only 4 subjects survived. Memory suppression administered. Residual effect. Unknown. Within weeks, more cases appear across Georgia. Children waking up at 3:33 a.m., drawing spirals, covering their ears, screaming about a man with a listening face. In every case, parents report hearing a tone like a low hum before their child changes, not just behaviorally, but neurologically. EEGs show synchronized brain patterns across affected children, even when they're miles apart. Narrator, one neuroscientist, called it a shared dream, a living algorithm written in sound. A linguist studying Amari's sleep speech made a breakthrough. Her mamas, an old dialect from Appalachian which law mixed with ancient Sumerian phonetics. The words translate to, the spiral opens the ear feeds the path. The path leads to the listener. They cross-referenced it with old settler journals. From the 1800s, one passage reads, the children gone mad again. Spinning, always spinning, say they hear the silence talk. Say the spiral mad comes when the crickets stop. It's happened before, and it always starts in quiet towns with children, and a sound no adult can hear. Eli returns home. His wife is in the kitchen crying. His daughter is in the living room staring at a blank TV. Her lips moving. No sound coming out. He walks up behind her. She turns. Eyes wide, Daddy. She whispers. He says if I tell you he'll take Mommy next. And then the lights go out. The last thing Eli hears, a tone. Low. Long. Then welcome to the silence. This isn't just a murder case anymore. It's not even about Simon Creed. It's about what was born the moment he heard that sound. The spiral is spreading. The silence isn't empty. It's full. And now, it's at Eli's front door. Like, comment, and subscribe. The next part will uncover how to stop the frequency, if it can even be stopped at all.